Welcome to the MrpTech podcast. This is episode 31. My name is Matt, and this is a weekly podcast where I review multiple platforms, technologies, software, and see which works best for me in order to help you out. And week after week with this podcast, what I do is I look for technologies that interest me, whether it be software or operating systems or hardware, different devices, and see how it can be used in my life, and hopefully that it might inspire my students, teachers, and other staff that I work with, or any other listener, to try these things out and benefit their own lives from time to time. Now, this week I am experimenting with some new hardware, and what I have done is when I first started podcasting, I looked into, instead of using my giant mixer to podcast with, I went to Guitar Center and I was looking for a USB microphone input so that I could use this on all of my computers, whether it be Mac or Windows or Linux. And the person at Guitar Center was actually very helpful, and he recommended the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 box. And I sort of was looking for the future, but I wasn't ready to buy it just yet. And as time went on, I started carrying my mixer from location to location to be able to record these podcasts when I had a chance to. And it became very cumbersome to do that. And well, last week I was listening to another podcast, and they brought up the same very device, and it works well for them. So at the same time, even as I was listening to the podcast, I was looking up this very box by Focusrite, and it was kind of a shock to be looking something up and listening to someone talk about it at the very same time. Well, I'm quite pleased with this new Scarlett 2i2 USB microphone input. And if the sound quality isn't quite right just yet, I've got to dial in the sound quality that I want in these podcasts. So bear with me as I move on. And anyway, in last week's episode, we talked about Hanson Robotics and some of the amazing technology that they have building robots and bringing them to a lifelike state in their look and in their actions. And in this week, I was going to, again, talk about something else entirely, and stumbled across a continuation of this discussion about Hanson Robotics that I wanted to bring up. What I wanted to bring up was something called the 2045 Initiative. And the 2045 Initiative is a nonprofit organization that develops a network and community of research in the field of life extension. We'll get to that in just a minute. The founder of the 2045 Initiative is someone by the name of Dmitry Itzhakov. And if you don't recognize that name, it's probably because you're not a billionaire. And Dmitry Itzhakov is a Russian billionaire who founded a web-based media company known as New Media Stars. Basically, he attended school in 1998. He was attended one of the top economic universities in Russia. He graduated in 2002 during his second year at this university. And his company basically deals with Russian online newspapers and Russian web portals. And their slogan is sort of like a corporation of original ideas. And he's made billions of dollars. And he's one of a handful of billionaires that are looking towards the singularity. And that singularity is the moment when artificial intelligence becomes a super intelligence. So their main goal in the 2045 initiative is to create technologies that transfer an individual's personality, their consciousness, transfers it into something else, extending a person's life maybe indefinitely. And what they want to do is encourage a dialogue between science, society, and spiritual traditions to make this possible. By doing this, they believe that they will create a new era for humanity. In going to 2045.com, their website, they list out lists of objectives to reach this goal by 2045, when they really believe that the technology to do this will be available. For example, what they want to do is create avatars for our consciousness in a step-by-step process. So, for instance, beginning now and then over the next few years, what they believe is their first avatar, called Avatar A. They believe by the year 2020 that the technology will exist, or does exist somewhat now, to make a robotic copy of a human body that is controlled by a brain-computer interface. So this robotic copy will be capable of interpreting commands directly from the brain and send information from the brain through a brain-computer interface and be able to control this robotic copy of a human body. And believe it or not, the technology is almost there. We see articles with people with prosthetic limbs being able to move those limbs using signals from their brains, and that technology is slowly progressing. The next step after that is to create Avatar B. Somewhere between 2020 and 2025, they believe the technology will exist to create an avatar to transplant a human brain into a avatar or robotic copy of a human body at the end of someone's life. So in this process, a system will be needed to be created to provide life support for our brain and allow it to interact with an environment around, possibly being mounted on another avatar. So we're sort of looking into the future. And one of the bases behind this technology is Moore's Law. And if you know Moore's Law, technology is advancing at a rapid pace and will continue to double every few years. And so based on the things that they need, the technologies that they need, they're saying this will be possible within the next 10 years. Looking ahead to Avatar C, somewhere between 2030 and 2035, they're looking to now create an artificial body with an artificial brain in which our consciousness is transferred from our brain to an artificial brain. And so basically what you're doing is you're uploading your personality to a computer that will control an entire avatar, and there will be no need for a human brain at that point. And the first upload is expected to happen somewhere around 2035. And then moving on to their last stage, Avatar D, they believe somewhere between 2040 and 2045 will be a hologram-like avatar. Now, this particular avatar is the ultimate goal, but it is optional because Avatar C meets all the requirements to lengthen a human lifespan. But in this case, things like biological diseases are prevented in these Avatar C and Avatar D. It's really far away from our current technology and understanding of physics. So the 2045 initiative is gearing up to gain momentum to create the funding and the technologies possible to reach that goal by 2045. So the first thing that they want to do is they want to create a support from an international community and cooperation around the world of interested specialists. They also want to recreate they want to create an international research center for cybernetic immortality, basically, and create an artificial body for the future when they can transfer the consciousness into that body. They want discussions from experts to sort of lead to breakthroughs in the future where this technology will arise from. They want to encourage schools and institutes of higher education to get involved with this project. And they want to create programs for radio and internet and television, and to hold conferences and to speak with governments, make games, make movies, anything that they can do to get this idea to be as widespread as they possibly can. And basically leading up to that artificial intelligence that we were talking about in our last episode, whether it's a form of intelligence where androids or robots or whatever you would like to call them write their own code, develop their own ideas, and become artificially super intelligent, or whether it's our own consciousness being uploaded into a cybernetic body. So how does this all work? I started to come up across all the different things that going into this project and wanting to know how certain things would work. So first of all, when we're talking about a brain transplant, basically, there are some existing challenges that come up when you're dealing with your brain. If you've ever known or heard of anyone that has gone through a traumatic brain injury, it's very difficult to get nerve tissue to heal properly. And scarred nerves don't transmit signals as well as a non-injured nerve. And that's why it's so devastating when you're coming to an injury when it comes to the brain. And that's why this brain-computer interface becomes so important. Now, this is technology that does not exist to the point where we can transfer a full consciousness at some point and still be able to control some sort of body that we would need. But they are making small advances year after year. And there have been experiments done with mice that have transplanted a half of a brain from one mouse to another. And the one great thing about the brain is that it was once thought to be a immunologically privileged organ. And if you know anything about liver transplants or kidney transplants, a lot of times those organs are rejected. However, as time goes on and more studies are done, research is showing that that might not be the case, that the brain may be just as liable for rejection than any other organ. Experiments have been done with monkeys, and within 10 days after a transplant, the monkey died. So there are problems to overcome when it comes to some of these ideas for the 2045 initiative. The goals themselves, though, are really interesting to me because they're looking towards the future and looking towards improving technology for all of us. Now, even if they can't reach this goal by 2045, think of the technologies that will come about to help us in the long run. Earlier, I mentioned prosthetic limbs for people to use that we can control with our brain. If the technology in that increases just a little bit from this project, that says a lot. And so with funding, what other types of projects can we learn? Maybe we can learn more about traumatic brain injury and learn how to better repair our brains after an incident, an accident of some kind. Again, even if we just make progress with that leading up with the 2045 initiative, I think that's kind of a neat idea. And so open letters are being sent to things like the UN to try to get the UN on board with this. And my questions that I have for this project are, if this does succeed, at first it will be very expensive. Who will be the first people that are able to do this? Will we pick sick and dying people to try this first? Or will the rich get to do this first? My next question is, will there come a time when this is a forced reality for everyone to do, meaning that we do not have a choice and that we are all forced to upload our consciousness to a artificial mind of some sort. The next question that I have is, let's say in 100 years or 150 years, the technology advances through Moore's law, and we are all uploaded into these robotic avatars. What happens after that with new lives? As we're all born, what happens with reproduction, and what happens with children and their lives? Will they be forced to upload? And once we're all uploaded, what do we do then? How do we create a new life? How do we create new intelligence? Do we just create an artificial intelligence at that point? Because we will be living with artificial intelligence at some point. And do we really want to go that route? Do we want to stop new lives from coming into this world? That's a strange question that I don't have an answer to. So as I started researching for this podcast, something really struck me about the 2045 initiative. This whole idea of transhumanism, developing these technologies to enhance the capabilities of humans, whether it be physical or intellectual or psychological, it seems to be more science fiction than fact at this point to me. And many people have said that this is a very dangerous idea. And on the other hand, other people are saying that it can be one of the most courageous and imaginative ideas to advance humanity. So there are pros and cons for each side of this initiative. And thinking about the 2045 initiative, it made me all of a sudden start thinking about another project that we've heard about over the last few years that didn't quite seem to hit all the marks that they needed to have a successful project. And what I'm talking about is not anything that has to, well, I guess it does have to do with progressing humanity. And I'm talking about Mars One. And if you don't know anything about Mars One was this really ambitious project to send the first colonies to Mars within the next few years. And basically, hundreds of thousands of people submitted why they should be the first ones to be sent to Mars. And the Mars One mission was basically this. They want to establish aerospace companies to colonize Mars within the next few years. They had an astronaut selection program back in 2013, and the first 4 rounds were held, and they narrowed their project down to about 100 candidates. Soon enough, they will narrow it down again, and it created a large media firestorm over the last few years, and many experts were calling this a scam. About $1 million was raised in 2011, and much of that has been spent on design and studies for this program, but it seems to have run out of steam over the last few years. In fact, just recently, within the last few months or years, these candidates for being the first colonists on Mars are starting to speak out and calling the Mars One project a scam and that it's dangerously flawed. And experts are saying that even if we were to send a small group to Mars right now, their ideas for colonizing Mars would end up killing most of these first colonists because we're not ready to go at this point. And the billions of dollars that they wanted to create was basically from a reality show that they wanted to do. They wanted to broadcast this all on TV and generate about $6 billion from this. Now, the CEO of Mars One has said that there's a lot of bad press and it's all untrue. And that a lot of the bad press that is coming about really is just an attempt to stop them from achieving their goals. And now what they're saying is, even if our project is 2 or 4 or 6 or even 8 years late, is that still considered a failure when they wanted to do this within the next couple of years? So Mars One sort of seems like it isn't developing any steam to continue on with this project. And I may be wrong, but it makes me think back to the 2045 initiative. Is this really a scam to raise funds and not go anywhere? Or is this something that will actually benefit us in the future? Now, if this really does happen by 2045, would you want to go and upload your consciousness into a robot and be indefinitely aware forever? It makes us all question that. And what happens during this consciousness? Are you just making a copy of the consciousness and the real consciousness dies and the copy continues, not knowing that it was ever not the original copy? So there are all sorts of strange questions that go with this. Moral and ethical questions that we brought up in the last episode. But it's interesting, all these companies like Hanson Robotics and the 2045 initiative and the many more projects out there developing these technologies. It is that right for you in the future? Will you benefit from these things? Kind of an interesting thought. What do you think? Do you think the 2045 initiative is a worthwhile pursuit? Or do you think it's a scam? Let me know. You can send me an email, mrptechreviews@gmail.com. And you can also take a look at my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/mrptech. Help me support keeping releasing new episodes on a frequent basis. And with that said, thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.